I'm so excited to have this opportunity to speak with Day Christensen. Day, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Did I
I'm
pronounce
well,
did I pronounce your last name correctly?
not totally correctly, but
Can you
almost correctly.
can you correct me?
Yeah, it's Christensen.
Christensen. I knew that. I'm sorry. Thank
Yeah.
you. Where are you joining me from today?
Um, a secret location.
Is it planet Earth, or are you
Planet,
somewhere?
planet Earth. Planet
Cool.
Earth.
Fair enough. Awesome. And well, I'm really excited to have this opportunity. I've had a chance to meet you many, many years ago when you were teaching in Miami.
Yeah.
And I've been following you on social media over the years. And I really appreciate how, from my perspective, watching you, I get the feeling that you don't want to just be satisfied with mediocre. I get the feeling you really try to make yoga authentic and personal and not just accept the status quo, for which you really inspire me. So I'm just really excited to have this opportunity. I've been wanting to reach out to you for a while, and I'm glad that this day is here. On that,
Yeah.
yay, thank you. On that note, can you give me a little bit of an idea about what you are up to these days?
Yeah. So basically, I'm exclusively working online at the moment. I'm not super opposed to going back to traveling and doing some workshops or seminars here and there, but for the most part, online is the thing. It's just what happened to most of us, I think, and it was good for me, just because I was traveling a lot. And it was exhausting. It was getting to the point where it was getting exhausting. So this has been a really nice way for me to connect with people all over the world at the same time. So it's been really good.
Cool. Was your switch to online because of COVID, and or were you already on that trajectory prior to?
It was the thing that kicked me in the butt to do it. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have, honestly,
Did
but
you?
yeah.
Me too. Did you already have a YouTube channel going?
I did, but truthfully, I neglect my YouTube channel. I shouldn't, but I do.
Why do you say you shouldn't?
It's just another resource. It's just another way to reach people and
I hear you.
get some of those ideas across. But I'm
Yes.
a little bit lazy about some of that stuff.
Do you feel like it's a lot of work?
It's totally a lot of work, and it's not really my wheelhouse. My thing is just teaching and be and coaching and helping people get better. And YouTube doesn't quite feel like that same interaction. It's
Hmm.
one step removed. So it's harder for me to do it.
Do you mean you feel like you can connect with students more via the Zoom slash, where it's a live experience where you can see people through the camera?
Yeah, I all the people that I work with are doing live classes. They're group classes via Zoom, and everybody that I work with, I try to get people on the phone. I try to call and talk to every single person, regardless of location, and I just do it via WhatsApp, and just to get a sense of where people are coming from, if they're hurt, if they're injured, obviously, but also what their goals are and what they're really interested in. And sometimes what comes across on my social media is handstands and jump backs and some of those vinyasas and some of that stuff, but that's not all that I do. Sometimes people are just feeling lost in their own yoga practice, or feeling like they're not progressing, or they're not happy, or they're not loving what they're doing anymore. And I also feel like that's a good place for me to step in and say, hey, you can do this differently. And obviously I just speak from experience.
Yes, cool. I've had the pleasure of being able to watch your career unfold, but for you that's listening, or for those that are listening, can you give me a summary and or snapshot of when you first interacted with yoga and how you fell in love with yoga?
Whew, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I ever fell in love with yoga, honestly. Um,
It's not a so the honeymoon, there was never was a love affair and there was no honeymoon and
no, not really. No. What my experience was for me kind of a quarter life crisis and kind of hitting a metaphoric rock bottom where I was feeling really disconnected from my body, really physically unfit, feeling unhealthy, feeling unmotivated. And I went from being in high school to being more of a jock, more athletic, to going into college. And I went into art school, which was, it's not physical. I mean, there are physical elements of it, but, you know, it's very cerebral. And I think that through all of that, it actually put me into a little bit of a emotional, mental downward spiral where I was just feeling really disconnected and unhappy with where I was. And so when I graduated, I kind of realized that I wasted a lot of years doing something that really didn't make me happy. And I just wanted to feel good. I just wanted to feel healthy. I felt beyond the point of being able to participate in team sports, which is what I really loved. And I became kind of interested in this idea of chi or prana or energy or quantum physics or whatever. I was very attached to that philosophy and that way of living. And so yoga seemed like the thing versus, let's say, something like Tai Chi. Yoga seemed like the thing that was athletic enough that sort of filled that void. And the philosophy portion that I was kind of interested in a more intellectual way was there. And so I started doing yoga because I was really hoping that I would feel better, I just wanted to feel better. I wanted to feel healthy. I wanted to be fit. And I thought, well, let's dive in. This is going to have to work. No choice, because it felt like my only option.
Mm. You know, it's really cool that you said that. I'm listening to a Howard Stern interview right now with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they were Howard was asking a question of like, why do you think musicians make it versus those that don't? And the guitarist for the Chili Peppers said that he'd heard a theory that if we were given a pill that said if we didn't make it, we wouldn't survive, that we'd be shocked at how creative we could become. And the way you just explained that reminded me of their comment where it feels like you had a similar type of, I have to do this. Like I have to figure something out
Yeah,
or else I
yeah,
don't know what the other side is or the other
yeah.
outcome. So that's interesting because obviously you have to be really passionate about what you do. You're obviously really passionate about what you do to be as successful as you are. That's cool. What was your first interaction? Like, what was the first style or practice did you fall into? What did you gravitate or what door opened for you on that level?
I really had no idea that there were so many different styles of yoga when I started. You know, when I started doing yoga, social media wasn't a thing. It didn't exist other than MySpace.
What year was that?
So I started in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't, like I said, I really didn't know that there were so many different sort of physical takes on what yoga was. I just thought yoga is yoga, right?
Yep.
So I tried a whole bunch of different things, not really knowing that I was trying different things, especially in the beginning. And then the most accessible, the most available type classes that I wound up in were vinyasa classes. Um, so I started taking them, and I liked the fact that they were, you know, kind of faster paced, and you know, it felt like I was more physically engaged in those type of classes than maybe some of the slower, what people call hatha classes. It's all hatha, I guess. But so that's what I was doing, and then I started doing like a work trade, a work study with the yoga studio that I was taking classes at, so that I can take, you know, all the classes for free. And the only time that really didn't conflict with my schedule, which I was working as a painter full time, were Sunday morning classes, or Sunday morning shift. And so I was working that Sunday morning shift, and there were only two classes going on, which was a Mysore class and sort of what I call like a grandma style slow flow class.
Yeah.
And so I would have to go in the room and check in the people. And so that was my first experience seeing what a Mysore room looked like. And obviously it's a stark contrast compared to doing a vinyasa class with music, with somebody talking all the time. And one of the things that I saw that really inspired me was that people were working on their own thing, and people were doing things. They were able to sort of take a specific goal, movement, asana, whatever it was, and build it according to whatever their level was physically. And so I was seeing things like drop backs. That was not exposed to me in vinyasa classes. Very, very rarely. I was seeing things like scorpions and TikToks and handstands. And I was like, there's something to this method of, having everybody do the same practice, but individually doing so we're all in a room together doing our own thing. It's the same thing, but it's our own thing. We're all at different levels. We're all at a different sort of rung on the ladder.
Yes.
And that concept is really nice. There are obviously problems with it that I felt like I uncovered the longer I spent in it. But in the beginning, the philosophy, the concept seemed really interesting, and seemed really something that was progressive and useful.
Is that when you then started practicing that method as well?
Well, I thought probably not correctly thinking, but I thought that I should familiarize myself with what Ashtanga was by taking guided classes first. So I tried a few guided classes. And truthfully, I thought they were super easy. And the reason why I thought they were super easy was because I wasn't doing half of it. The
Mm.
half that I wasn't doing were the jump backs and the jump throughs. I was doing the poses, which I had already gotten myself to the point of being fairly flexible. Some of the poses were super weird, the leg behind the thing, the head thing, the Garbha Pindasana lotus rolling around in a circle thing. I was like, what? I mean, if that's part of the deal, I guess I'll roll around in a circle, I mean, the poses didn't really speak to me
Mm.
necessarily. What spoke to me was what I saw in the Mysore room. So I dabbled a little bit before I actually kind of jumped and said, okay, I'm going to just try this Mysore thing, which seemed difficult because, again, you don't have somebody per se holding your hand.
Yes. Were you in Miami at the time?
No, I'm from Chicago, so I was in Chicago.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I hadn't moved to Miami yet until I was probably practicing. I was practicing about 6 years before I moved to Miami.
I'm curious because you had made mention thus far that you didn't really fall in love with yoga, that it was maybe more you felt you needed to something need you needed it to help you in some way. At this point, it doesn't sound like you were extremely enamored with my source style, like just at first glance, like you were intrigued, but it wasn't a whole like mind-blowing, whoa, what's going on? Am I getting that right? Or do you agree with me there?
Um, no, it was more of an appreciation of the method, of not having every single person in the same room kind of moving in sync. There was an appreciation for everybody moving at their own pace and doing their own thing, kind of at their own level.
Yeah.
So it was an appreciation, more of an intellectual
Yeah.
appreciation.
Yeah.
And I thought it was, as I said, it seemed to be the thing that was going to be more productive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like, but you progressed pretty far into the Mysore world because you started to go to Mysore in India, correct?
Yeah, it was something that I avoided for a really long time. Truthfully, it was
Yeah.
not on my list. I wasn't like, sign me up, let me live, let me drop my life and take a month or two off and go to India. And by the way, when you're and I don't mean to say anything bad about going to India, go to India if you want to go to India. I didn't want to go, but I went because I was in some ways kind of backed into it. Um, One, I was getting to a point where I felt like the people around me in my local community had taught me all that they could. And so I felt like, and I wasn't ready necessarily to teach myself without feeling. So I was teaching kind of vinyasa hybrid, Ashtanga ish classes, but I wasn't teaching Mysore regularly. I was subbing sometimes, but I wasn't ready to take on, let's say, a program. And so, yeah, I just didn't feel like I had learned everything that I could learn. And when I got the offer to move to Miami, it was sort of the requirement. It was like, if you want to work here, if you want to participate in what we have going on, you have to go to Mysore. So I said, okay, well, I guess there's no other choice now. I have to go. Um, so that's what I did. Yeah. And that was fine. I didn't have high expectations per se, but that's what I did.
Yeah. How many times did you go?
I went 6 times.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's a solid effort.
Yeah, it was a pretty solid effort.
Yeah. That's a solid. I mean, it's a big deal to be able to take a whole month or more
Yeah.
to travel, adjust to being in another country, travel back, then pick up where you left off and have a
And
career and be able to
yeah,
pay
hope
bills. And
your classes are there and hope that your students are still there and
yeah,
all,
yeah,
all those things. Yeah, it was a huge sacrifice. And I was hoping that I was going to get something in return, which on my first two trips, I took month-long trips, and then everything after the last four trips were 2-month trips. So it was a big sacrifice. No work, no money. There wasn't options for like that. Then now I see, probably if I were to continue doing something like that, you can still work online and things like that. But at the time, it was like you teach in a studio.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I was leaving that in hopes that I would get something in return. Of course, knowledge, more information, more attuned to the system and all those things. And then the second thing would be some sort of accreditation, some sort of acknowledgement that I've done the work, I've put in the work because, I went through college and I got a degree. So you sort of feel like, well, that was useless. It was for me. So now I hope to do something that was more meaningful and be able to say, look, this is here's my accreditation, here's what I've accomplished, which could position me to be more of an authority and say, I'm a person that you can study with, train with, and it would be worth your while because I've put in this time.
yes,
So yeah, so my third trip I was authorized, level 2 authorized. and and I really saw myself on the path for certification, but that didn't happen. Things changed before
yeah,
that could happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's so interesting, Day, because uh, we went to Mysore, and prior to going to Mysore, we had gotten certified in Bikram yoga and
Mhm.
had a Bikram yoga studio in San Diego, and had such a, I don't know, like how do I say this? To watch someone who was playing the guru role and then just really not act in a way that felt authentic or like very caring. And then we could even stretch a little further into like quite abusive and mean and nasty. And then so when we went to India, I was really enamored with the Mysore experience in similar way that when you saw a Mysore room, you're just like, this is so interesting. What a cool aspect or concept where all these different levels can be in one place. But I think I got, I don't want to say burned, but from watching the Bikram world and all of the stuff that went on in that scene, I just couldn't subscribe again to another ladder climbing scenario again. So I feel like that first experience kind of cured me, which allowed me to go into this jungle realm a little more, I don't know if skeptical is the right word, but just cautious, I guess. And now having been teaching for 20 plus years or whatever, I'm very happy and secure just being like my own person and not really a part of any institution. Although I really appreciate the institutions too for what the positive things they can offer. Does any of that seem similar for you in your transition from have you kind of handed over your authorization back? Have you made a formal
Not officially.
declaration or
So what happened was when at the time that I received the authorization, of course, it's not, the way that people make it sound is that it's some sort of a blessing. It's not something that you can sort of check the boxes and say, well, here I've paid my dues. Now it's time to authorize me. The way that it's sort of presented is that, oh, like if this guru sees something special in you, he will just offer it to you. So you can't ask. So that was stressful because it didn't seem clear. It didn't seem defined to me. But so I just kind of inserted myself in front of Shrat's face as often as I could to be like, hey, don't like neglect me. Like, you know, for the good or bad, there were some things that I would do that he really didn't like doing some high jumps or some handstand looking ish vinyasas in class, just so he would be like, hey, don't do it. And I'd be like, sorry, oops. But I did sort of make myself stick out as best as I could because there's a sea of people. There are 200 people at that time. There's probably more now. I'm sure it's more like 300 or 400 people that would be practicing at one time. So how do you stand out? You gotta make yourself stand out. So I'm probably going off on a tangent, but
no, I'm interested to hear everything you're saying. So it's not a tangent.
okay, good. So anyway, I did part of the unspoken rules is that you have to make, or maybe it's spoken, I don't know, but that you have to make 3 trips. On my 3rd trip, as I said, I had been practicing for 6, 7. By the time that I got authorized, I had already been practicing for 9 years. So, but it was only my 3rd trip. So I kind of skipped authorization level 1. I completed 2nd series and boom, I got the authorization level 2. And I was at a really sticky point because when you complete 2nd series, part of the gateway to 2nd series into 3rd series is doing TikToks, which I always say that there's 2 different types of people. And there are people who TikTok and there are people who Scorpion. And very rarely is someone able to do both very well. So I was definitely on the Scorpion side. I could do, it's static, it's controlled, it's slow. I'm not one for hurling my body through space. A great gymnastic tumbler, I would not make, you know what I'm saying? So TikToks were really sticky for me, really, really difficult. And there was a lot of pressure I had already started doing some 3rd series poses. So there was a lot of pressure for me to perform and to do it consistently. And when I was practicing in Mysore, that pressure was known. Sharat would stand by my mat every time that I was doing my back bends, and I would sort of feel like, oh God, now this is my fault. I should not feel this way. I should do whatever the hell I want. But I succumbed to the pressure and started doing things much quicker than I normally would. And it was kind of the straw that broke my back, not the camel's back, my back. So I really did a number, doing all these back bends, doing them so quickly and doing them in such high volume on a daily basis. And if anybody has ever been in a Mysore room, in that type of experience, one of the things you hear over and over and over again is catching. Did he catch? Did she catch? Did she? So catching, obviously, grabbing your ankles in a back bend, or your knees or your shins or whatever, was a part of the daily practice on top of all of this. And it just, I mean, think about it. It cannot be healthy. There's nothing about that can be good for anybody. I don't care how wonderfully physically inclined you are, that's going to take its toll. And of course it did. So yeah, I was moving through third series, but feeling quite a lot of pressure to keep up this really strong back bending thing. And it kind of ruined me. And in combination with the back bending and not feeling good, and eventually being in chronic and crippling pain, to all the things that came out about Patabi Joyce during the whole Me Too push, all the issues, which I think was truly a distraction, was that a lot of teachers, certified and authorized alike, were getting their authorizations or certifications revoked for seemingly no reason. And I was like, one of my friends, who I'm sure everybody knows, was Mark Roberts. And I was there for his certification. And I thought, meeting Mark and knowing Mark, I thought, wow, what a nice guy. What a nice, reverent person Mark is. And when he got his certification, I was like, wow, I'm sure he really, truly deserves this. I didn't even know him that well. And then a few years later, to find that Mark's certification was revoked numerous times. And I thought, well, if a nice guy like Mark can get his certification revoked for, doing a couple back handsprings on Instagram or whatever he was doing that was non-Ashtanga, I thought, well, I'm not reverent. I'm not that nice. I'm not that respectful. I don't love all this stuff like everybody else. I'm just here because I'm sort of like, I'm committed now. And I'm like, well, if a nice guy like Mark is going to get his certification revoked, who the hell am I? I'm just this person who's, I'm authorized. I mean, who cares? I'm going to be the least reverent person. The only thing that saved me was I kept my mouth shut for so long. And so I was like, well, you know what? This is just a ticking time bomb. It's just a matter of time. And I can't do this anymore. I no longer believed in it, especially when I can see all these people. I mean, postural issues and pain, back pain, knee injury, hip injury. I mean, some of our quote unquote greatest senior Ashtanga teachers all walking around in pain and running to see the guy who does, the physical therapy or the trigger point therapy. I mean, he made, I'm sure, a really nice living off of all of us yoga students. So I'm thinking, well, let's try and go back to why this all started. And for me, it was because I wanted to feel good. I didn't want to feel bad. So then I started to realize there's a total disconnect. I got too caught up in the game and getting ahead and trying, I wanted to be authorized. I want to be certified. I want to get up the ladder and do this pose and do the next pose and do the next pose. And I want to be the best because that's my personality. If I'm going to do something, I want to be the best. So, and that doesn't mean better than anybody else. It just means, more the best for me. I just wanted to really, really push it.
Yes.
It wasn't the thing, that wasn't the direction that I should be pushing. So, And I think a lot of people do that. And what I really started to understand was that, first of all, most people are not going to have my mentality when it comes to yoga. Most people are going to have a job, have a life, do yoga in the morning or whatever, because they think it's going to be the thing that keeps them healthy, keeps them fit. They're not going to be as committed or like as psychotic about it like I was. And so I was like, well, you know what? If you only have so much time, you have a life, you have a job, you have a family, you have other things going on, yoga isn't your life, then yoga probably isn't the thing for you. There's probably better ways that you can contribute to your health and fitness that does not require this 90-minute, 2-hour practice 6 days a week, doing all these really deep yoga asanas that seem to be more harmful than beneficial. So anyway, long story short, when Sharat had a big falling out with his family, I think, and he decided to not go under KPJ, but go under Sharat Yoga or whatever it was. And he asked everybody, all the people who were authorized and certified, to resubmit and say, yes, I'm an authorized teacher, and I'll put you up on my new list, my Sharat list, not my Patabi Joyce list or whatever. I just never did it. Because, as I said, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's wisdom in seeing, like, if I don't put some water on this fuse, there is going to be an explosion, and the explosion could be bad for you and bad for other people, right? It could be, I'm not saying it would turn into violence, but I just mean more on the level of, like, who knows how that could progress. And so
yeah.
that's a sign of wisdom, Day, I think. I mean, I love hearing your story because I feel on the same trajectory.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really curious. I almost teared up a little bit when you started talking about the back. My palms were sweating, and I just like had a visceral reaction to you talking about the back bend not breaking the camel's back, but my back. I'm curious, did you have any sort of X-rays or MRIs or any interaction with other healthcare professionals that started to coach you and help you to understand some of these observations that you've come into conclusion about?
Yeah. So for the most part, that was also um, what's a nice way of putting it? Unhelpful. Because I got the x-ray, I got the MRI, I went to see chiropractors, I went to see acupuncturists, I went to see massage therapists, I went to see healers, which is not, I don't know if you can tell from my personality, but it's not necessarily my thing. But I went to see everybody and anybody, physical therapists, like, anybody who I felt like could help me with the pain that I was experiencing. So I spent tons of money and tons of time seeking the expertise of the professionals. Of course, from the x-ray and the MRI, I could tell, you can see what's wrong. So what was wrong, according to the imaging, was that I had 2 degenerated discs. So that degenerated, for anybody who's listening or wondering, is beyond the point of herniation. So some people say, oh, I herniated a disc or I have a bulging disc. Well, it's beyond that point. It's to the point where all the spinal fluid is gone and all we have left is one vertebra on top of the other. So I was getting to the point of degeneration and getting to the point of fusion. The only reason why those bones didn't calcify and start to fuse together was because I was so active. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. I kept moving, I kept practicing, I kept doing yoga. Of course, I was forced into modification majorly. But on the other hand, that all that tells me is that that was something that was ongoing and that it didn't really, in other words, the degenerated discs or the herniated discs weren't the cause of my pain, because they had been herniated for so long that I didn't even know it until the point when they were already, the spinal fluid was gone. So of course, when you get an image and when you talk to a doctor or something like that, they don't know. All they can tell you is what's wrong. They can't tell you why it happened, and they can't tell you what to do about it. The solution is, well, you could take a painkiller, you can take a muscle relaxer, you can get a surgery, you can, but there's nothing to do in terms of lifestyle or movement or what particular things have contributed to how this has happened in your body. There's none of that. So a lot of time and money, like I said, and I felt like I still had no answers. I came up dry. I had some temporary solution. Sometimes a massage would feel good. Sometimes I would maybe think I was feeling better after a chiropractic visit, but it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't long lasting. So I started just to say, well, no one's going to fix this but me. I got myself into this and I'm going to get myself out of it. And I started really digging deep and experimenting with movement myself, and then kind of looking more into postural dysfunctions, looking more into repetitive movement injuries and pain. And I really feel like I came up with some things that were really strongly affirmed by my research in terms of, this is good, this is bad. This is a healthy way to move. This is an unhealthy way to move. And when I say good, bad, I mean that, or functional or dysfunctional, I mean that whatever movement pattern or repetitive pattern that you have that you keep doing, if it makes you feel good, it's good. If it makes you feel bad, it's bad. So that's what I mean. It's all based on feeling, not necessarily anything else, not necessarily looking at somebody's x-ray or MRI, but saying, does this feel good? Does this feel right? So yeah, anyway, that's how all that started. Was I started just changing my practice into doing something that felt better.
I'm so happy to hear this, Dave, because about I've been having really serious back pain, and it's been for a few years. And but it's just hit a point about 3 weeks ago where I was like, I've got to go get this checked out. And so no disc in between L5 and S1 and a spondylolisthesis on L4.
Yeah.
And so that basically means back bending. Mm-mm. So then when I look at these pictures of me being pulled and me holding my ankles in a kapotasana and or like you said, catching, and that pressure to catch and that like everything that comes with it, like the adrenaline, the ego, the congratulatory after practice, like, whoa, you got an inch higher up that time than you did yesterday. Or that person that isn't catching that's jealous, like,
Yeah.
and you don't want to feed off that, but like you
You're
said,
human.
we're kind of competitively orientated individuals, and I agree with you 100% where you said I want to be the best, but it's not so much like better than you or
Yeah.
the neighbor. It's just our own drive is so intense. So um I had a moment of catharsis where I was like, what am I going to do? But I'm having a similar realization as to what you're speaking of. As soon as I'm starting, I mean, there's an element where like, yeah, that disc, I mean, some people will try to be really positive and be like, oh, maybe that disc will come back, or I've seen this grow back, or I've seen this happen. But man, when you're in pain and you're on bone or you're close to it, it's so freaking intense. So, and it's like every movement has to be so calculated. Like the way you lean your body when you're standing has to be corrected this way. And you have to spend 110% of our attention and time on trying to find the right spot for the spine where there's not this pressure. And it's just so intense. But quite honestly, today was one of the best days I've had in a while. But I know what you said about like, and I went to the chiropractor yesterday. So I was like, oh, you get this moment of like, maybe this is it. I'm going to be okay. Right. And today I'm in the least amount of pain that I've been in for months. And so I'm so happy. But at the same time, this other part in the back of my mind is saying, watch out, dude, because tomorrow's a new, you know what I mean? Like, don't get too excited, which I know is a horrible way to probably come at this, but I know that's real because every day, I mean, our bodies just don't feel great every day. And like sometimes we do everything we possibly can for our bodies and it still can have a really bad day. So I'm super curious. How long ago was it that you had this sort of revelation and that you started to honor your edge and not care what your postures look like at all and do them 100% for you and your health and you're feeling good in your body? And how is that going on a day-to-day basis for you so I can get a little insight into how I can go about this too?
That was it. I wish it happened sooner, is all I
Yeah.
can
I
say.
know I feel this sense of like rebirth that's coming out of this. Like, I'm so thankful that I had that pain because I would just keep hammering myself if I didn't actually listen to it finally or something like that.
Truthfully, it was a very long process of letting go. It was sort of like, the stages of grieving, of death, whatever those are, like anger, depression, bargaining. Well, maybe if I just take off a couple days and then I do this, and then all
Bargaining.
those
Yeah.
things, and then finally, you get to a point of acceptance. Well, all of that process of grieving the death of my Ashtanga practice and my career took years. It took years.
Yeah.
And had, now having the experience that I'm having now and understanding, first of all, patterns of pain. Everybody has the same shit. We're all doing the same shit and we all have the same shit. We all have the same injuries, but it's usually the back pain that really is the alarm for most people. Okay, hamstring, knee, shoulder, wrist, elbow, you know all things we can kind of live with without sounding the alarm, so to speak, and saying, well, there's something wrong. But when there's back pain, it feels so devastating that it really starts to call into question the practice, our practices. What are we doing? What are we doing on a day-to-day basis that we're devoting our time, our energy, our bodies, our money to doing a practice that's making us feel like this? And that's, my whole message is wake up, wake up. Everybody who's doing this and who's not feeling phenomenal, it's not worth the investment. It's not worth the sacrifice. You're literally sacrificing self for something else outside of you. And so, had I understood that perspective, I would have quit a long time ago and I would have said, nope, me first. But I was so hooked in this idea that I have to be great at this. I have to keep doing this. I still want to be certified. Being certified means, by the way, going through all of third series. Well, there's some real doozies in third series and the backbending. I mean, there's some real bullshit backbending, not to
Oh,
mention that you're still having to do second series at least once a week. Or if you're still kind of in that path of doing, second series and then half a third or whatever it is, which, by the way, was my most miserable time in life. When
uh,
I was doing second series and then like half of third before I had been split into doing third alone, I was the most miserable human being on the planet. It was exhausting. It was not healthy. It was not fun. It took
uh,
up my time, my energy. I mean, I didn't have a life outside of that. That was my life. So, in order for me to undo all that had been done, all that I did, I willingly participated in, um, took years. It took years for me to slowly let go and say, this doesn't feel good. I'm not going to do it. And then this, and then this, and then this. And then I started dropping things, little by little. And then eventually I started adding some things. Okay, well, I'm going to start adding a little bit of strength training. I'm going to start doing a little bit of this because some of these things they just don't work. So
yes. Wow.
that's took a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know it doesn't, the specifics don't matter, but it's just more on my own curiosity so that I feel like as a teacher, if I can learn from you and it can help somebody who might have the same area of dysfunction. But do you mind if I ask what area of your spine that?
Oh, right where you're feeling it. So the two degenerated discs are L4, L5, and L5, S1.
Yeah. Can you give me some
There's a
insight?
reason for that too.
Can you give me insight into some of the better rehab exercises slash things that you've implemented? Well, first off, are you in pain right now?
No,
When's the last time you remember being in that just like can't see the light of day type of discomfort? How long ago was that?
years.
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 Wow. Yes. That's encouraging. Thank you. Because I remember a couple weeks ago, I was just like, what if I'm like this for the rest of my life? I don't know if I
No,
can do this.
no, that's another big piece of the message is you do not have to live this way.
Uh,
People feel
yeah.
pain currently, all the yoga people. I mean, this is for you guys. It's you do not have to live like this. It can change. This what you think is structural damage, you have damage to your spine is not the biggest indicator of pain. I never got a surgery. I still have the degenerated discs and I feel fine. It's muscular. So when I say I went to the chiropractor, and I did do that for a few rounds, I think I spent like a month or 2 months doing weekly visits to the chiropractor. But what happens when you go to the chiropractor is that they correct the bone, wherever the joint, whatever is going on. So, you get a little twist and the back cracks, or, they do this and crack your neck and whatever. So they can correct any sort of misalignment to your bones. That's fine. But what is the thing that's missing is what moves bone. Muscle moves bone. So when you leave a chiropractic office and you've just been adjusted, most people feel pretty great. They feel, wow, I'm an inch taller. I feel great. I feel amazing. Okay. And then 24 hours, if you're lucky, 48 hours goes by and you feel the same. It goes right back. Why does it go back? It goes back because it's muscular. Muscle moves bone. So if you don't address the muscular imbalance, then you're going to be taking a portion of your paycheck or whatever, however you're earning your money and your time, and devoting it to the guy at the chiropractic office who's never addressing the source of the problem. He's addressing the symptom. The symptom is that you're out of line, you're out of whack, right? So you have to address the source of the problem. The source of the problem is always muscular, and it's a muscle imbalance. And so, again, to go back to good and bad, functional, dysfunctional, you have to understand that we all have muscle imbalance. It's part of being human. It's part of being able to move the way that we move. But once you reach a certain age, your muscle imbalance, let's say that you have some muscles that are stronger, some muscles that are weaker. So what most people think happens when you age is that you just become weaker. Everything goes down. But what really happens is that functional imbalance grows, and there's a disparity between your tight, strong muscles and your weaker muscles. It grows so that your muscle imbalance essentially becomes dysfunctional. So your postural muscles, the muscles that are perceived as tight. So what are tight muscles? What are muscles that cause you pain or tension? Your trapezius, your low back, everybody has tight hamstrings. I don't care how flexible you are. So all of your tight postural muscles are primarily composed of type 1 postural slow twitch muscle fibers. They don't have the same capacity for mass, for growth. So those muscles always stay strong. Those muscles always stay tight. It's the weaker muscles that have the type 2, what they call fast twitch muscle fibers, that will deflate if you don't use them. And that's where that muscle imbalance grows. So everybody starts to get that gap bigger and bigger and bigger as we age, especially past the age of 25. And if you learn how to address that, if you start to learn what are your tight postural muscles and what are your weaker phasic muscles, if you understand that relationship right there, you can save your body.
Nice.
You can save exactly how you're feeling. You don't have to live that way if you understand how to address that.
Awesome day. Great info. You've been studying, you've been learning so much. I love it. Through
Yeah.
experience. Doesn't it feel amazing when you actually learn it because you have to versus like intellectually, like, oh, I'm going to go to school and study muscles
Yeah.
versus like, whoa, what, what do I need to do today to
Yeah.
fix, to feel better. So this is pretty cool. So the people that you're working with currently, so I know this next question, everyone has a different answer for it. And I'm really curious what yours is. You have the 19-year-old who seems born to do legs behind the head slash Purnamotsindrasana, like a really deep lotus slash whatever.
Yeah.
And they have no restriction, they feel no pain, and they're amped about the heat. They love the fire. Like it just the adrenaline, everything's firing. Do you take them into those places and encourage that? Or do you use this sort of elder wisdom vibe to say, whoa, look at the long-term picture and prepare for your future? What do you think about that?
There's an expiration date on anything that chases deep flexibility. It's a buy now, pay later situation. So,
Mhm.
yes, you can go nuts, do
It's
the
like a credit
back.
card. It's like
Go, go. But the bill will come. It will come, and you're not going to like it. So, at this point in my life, my teaching, my career, I no longer teach yoga asana, period. I don't teach yoga asanas at all. So anything that looks like a pretzel is not even on my radar as far as what I'm doing in my classes. So yeah, I certainly don't encourage it. I've had people I've worked with who did what I did, are having a hard time letting go of what they know, of the practice that they know, and continue it, but now sort of dip their toe into what I'm doing. And like I said, I just feel there's an expiration to it. There's
Yeah.
time will tell.
I've been watching some Instagram posts of people that are in Mysore currently, and I've seen some people looking, you know how when you get elated, I don't know if you've ever been elated. Have you have
Of
you
course.
had the, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
you
Of
know,
course.
from the practice. And then I've been hearing some people, it's been like an up and down thing of like I feel like sold and like I'm broken.
Yeah.
And I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, thank God I'm not there right now. Like not to be, but honestly, like I'm like, oh my God, I just can't even imagine
Doesn't that sound a lot like a drug?
mm, being
Doesn't it?
being addicted to like a substance.
Yeah. And feeling elated and
Mm,
feeling broken from
mm,
the same thing.
yeah.
Same practice, same
Wow.
thing.
Yeah. Good observation.
It's an addiction. It's a very serious addiction. And so what people do is try to replace, and we all have an addictive personality. You don't have to be in AA or NA or anything like that. This is a human trait. And we have one negative behavior that got us, maybe dug us into a hole. Like I said, I had my quarter life crisis. I hit my virtual rock bottom, and I decided to replace my negative habits with what I perceived to be positive habits. And it was just another drug. It was another thing that I placed more importance on than myself. It took over. So I stopped thinking about, do I feel good? I didn't feel good. I didn't want to wake up at 5 in the morning. I didn't want to do 2 hours of bending and whatever. I didn't feel good, but I was doing it because I felt like it was going to bring me some sort of peace, joy, health, fitness, all those things that I really wanted it to do. Of course, it didn't do, but I kept doing it because it was like, investment bias. I
Yeah.
had already put in the time. I
Yeah.
wanted it to work.
Oh, I know. I mean, great point. Do you remember being a kid, seeing either a parent or an elder, somebody older, and thinking, how come they are so entrenched and like they had this career for so long and they just couldn't, it's their whole life was around it, but you could kind of watch that and go, I'm never going to do that. And then you find yourself actually doing that. And at some point have to like relearn, being willing to try something totally different. Does that, did you ever have that as a kid of like kind of saying to yourself, I'll never do that? Like watching that and then finding yourself in that pattern, or
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You
have you sorry, I'm just, and one more quick question. Do one of the fears, I'll be, to be honest, one of my fears is, well, what am I going to do? And so are you more successful now because you're following your truth, or have you had to take a pay cut because you're following your truth?
I'm more successful.
Yay. Good to hear.
Yeah.
That's positive too. Two really positive messages. You're not in pain anymore. I mean, I'm sure you have a few things, but not like major, major. And you're
Yeah.
successful. So this is
Right.
awesome, Day. This is cool. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that
Congratulations. Yeah.
I think that for anybody who's looking to be successful, a huge component to success is that you're enjoying what you do and that it's meaningful. There's
Yes.
purpose.
Yes.
So, yeah, now that I feel like I'm truly living in my purpose, of course, if you believe in karma, it's it comes back, right? So that's a huge reason why I'm able to continue doing what I do, which by the way, I've had many, many a time where I'm like, I'm just going to get myself out of this yoga world and just felt like, God, it's toxic. It doesn't work. All, 80, 90% of people who are practicing yoga in the fashion that I was practicing, you know, the constant 6 days a week Ashtanga, 2 hours a day, people, I can't think of anyone that's not living with some sort of pain or injury. So, when you're actually doing something that makes you feel good and you put that into the world, that's contagious. And then it comes back.
Yeah.
If you're, putting out into the world, I was a really bitchy person. I have a reputation from my olden days of teaching Ashtanga where I was tough, I was hard, I was, that's because that's what it was. That's what it was for me. That was my experience. And so that's what I was putting out there. And of course, what I attracted were people who were like me, people who needed something to fill a void. And so those are the people I got.
Yeah.
Now I'm putting out, hey, I'm putting out a message of healing. I'm putting out a message of strength. I'm putting out a message of, hey, we can do better. And so now I'm getting the people who are interested in those things. So it's whoever you are is what you're gonna attract.
Yes.
So this is a much, much better way to live, for sure.
Can you speak a little bit about the healing process that occurs from feeling like you have to beat yourself up to be good? Do you agree with me on that? Like, I mean, I then, so at some point I'm like, okay, like this, let me try triathlon. Let me try endurance events. I mean, all of these types of things are like really intense, pushing the body to like see if you can get it to break, to
Yeah.
then see how I can respond to that. And if I can somehow prove that I'm a beyond the human body, bigger than that, that will equal enlightenment and or self-mastery.
I'm pretty sure it won't.
I'm pretty, yeah, I'm pretty sure it won't too, because everyone I speak to that's gone down that whole endurance triathlon world, is just as beat up and broken. And at some point look back and go, oh, what am I doing? What did I do? Why? What was I
It's
doing?
another endurance activity.
Yeah.
So this is another thing that I've sort of teach in one of my courses, which is that the endurance activities, yoga, marathon running, triathlons, anything like that, that's a repetitive movement that's done for anything longer than 30 minutes is an endurance activity. And that is what they call a low impact, steady state activity. So it starts to become mindless. So cycling, endurance, long distance swimming, long distance running. It becomes this mindless sort of, and yoga becomes that because when you memorize the sequence, it's just that, just this kind of mindless, this pose and this pose and this. So there's studies that have been done, and they were done in the early 2000s in Canada, the McMaster studies, that determined that these long endurance style activities are actually not that great for you. In fact, that they're the highest source of injury and pain and actually ill health. So if you look at, let's say, the muscle mass between a marathon runner and a sprinter, what you'll see is that a marathon runner, as amazing as an athletic feat as it may be, oftentimes the best marathon runners, if you look up like the best male and the best female marathon runner of last year, or one of the fastest times was a Kenyan who did a marathon in like 2 hours or something. I don't know. If you look at that person, if you were just to look at that person without the tank top, without the number, without the shorts, if you were just to look at that person and say, is this a healthy person? You probably would not identify that person as healthy. But if you were to look at a sprinter and you look at their body, their physique, their glow, their skin, their muscle mass, and you said, is this a healthy person? Is this a fit person? You would most likely, again, take off the gear, take off the the running shorts and running shoes, and just look at their bodies in just normal clothes. You would identify the sprinter as being a healthy fit person. And the reason why is because when we sprint, when we do activities at a near all out threshold, and this could be done super fast or it could be done super slow. There's two ways of doing it. What happens is a central adaptation, meaning that if you were to look at, let's say, the muscle mass of a sprinter's deltoids, you would find that a sprinter has massive deltoids, biceps, triceps. Well, what the hell does that have to do with running? Not that much. When you look at a marathon runner, there's no arms, right? Skinny fat, sort of, not muscle mass. So what is determined from these studies is that there's a central adaptation, meaning that when you run, you make your whole body, when you sprint, I should say, you make your whole body healthy and you have a positive cardiac effect. Whereas when you jog for a long distance, it actually has a negative impact because you lose muscle mass.
Yeah.
And so you can see that. I mean, it's black and white. So that's the same thing with the yoga.
Yeah.
People are doing these long endurance activities that are actually making them skinnier and weaker rather than strong, robust, and healthy. These people are literally, and I was one of them, literally breaking down their bodies. And the skinnier you are in yoga, the better, because who can bind Pashasana when you're fat or muscular?
Good
You
point.
can't.
You can't.
You can't.
I mean, one weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh, Day. I want to be so respectful of your time. I just put my glasses back on. I'm like, oh wow, we're over the hour mark. And I know you're probably busy. Am I
okay.
holding you up right now?
No, I'm okay right now. Yeah, we
Can I
can.
ask you one more question?
Sure.
I'm coming into your class. I'm on Zoom. Are you using the word yoga anymore? Or are you using a different word to describe what you teach? And then what are you going to ask me to do? Or what are you going to encourage or teach me to do? And
Yeah.
I'm guessing already, like maybe it's just for a half hour. Maybe
Yeah.
it's not
All my classes are half an hour classes, 30 minutes.
30 minutes. So can you paint a picture for me what I could expect?
Sure. So most of my classes are sort of like if yoga and CrossFit had a baby. So combine what I called a LISS, a low impact steady state, remove that, add in HIT, high intensity interval training, that sort of format with a lot of the CrossFit terms of EMOMs, AMRAPs, Tabatas in a way that is athletic handstand training is mostly what the classes that I offer. I also offer corrective exercise, therapeutic classes that deal with functional strength training that are at a much slower pace that still do the job of building that phasic muscle, fast twitch muscle fiber. But they're done where anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. Scaled up or down, anybody can do it. So I have kind of a slow pace class that's more strength focused. And then I have these kind of athletic handstand training classes and of course the intention is for it to be fun so that you feel energized, you feel like you're enjoying yourself, you feel like you're working on a skill, and it's done in more of a athletic way, which is really what my interest was when I left
Yeah.
my sort of high school jock days and went, that was the piece that was missing for me, was having that kind of like, excitement. And
Yes.
yeah, but I don't recommend, I mean, nobody would come into one of those classes without being prepped first, which is where my courses come in.
Yeah, you mentioned that you'll have somebody take one of your pre-recorded courses first. So in those, do you just kind of give some of this philosophy to folks? So, hey, don't expect to do things exactly the same way you've done in a different class. This is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, and let's have fun. Is,
Yeah.
is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So I have the three courses. Number one is the course I call the Four Pillars course, which would be like for someone like you and me, who is dealing with pain. And that is basically just some of the things, some of the ideas that I touched on.
Yes.
And essentially it's meant to educate and empower the person, the student, the participant, rather than what I was doing and what we all do is going to the teacher, going to the doctor, going to the therapist, going to stop looking outside of yourself and learn how to understand your own body. So that's the whole intention of the Four Pillars course: understanding muscle imbalance, postural dysfunction, some movement patterns, your shoulders, your hips, asanas, and quote unquote stretching. Most people don't know how to stretch. And so stretching has actually become an unhealthy thing, and the way most people do it is unhealthy. So I talk about all those things in a way that you can then start to approach what was your yoga practice in a completely different way. Option number two is for somebody who's really interested in handstand training. So I have a course on handstand, the handstand course. And then the other portion, the other course is what I call the more is less course, which essentially has to do with the ideas that I talked about, sprinting versus marathoning. So that has to do with shortening your practice or shortening your strength training or shorten whatever workouts you're doing, and understanding why doing a shorter, more intense exercise is by far more beneficial than doing a less intense exercise that's spread out through a longer duration. So I talk about that in that course.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to check it out.
Great.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah, thanks so much, Todd. I really appreciate you letting me get it all out there.
Oh man, I was so excited for today, and I had a feeling that it was going to be as good as it just was.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm gonna stay in touch and keep communicating with you because I really appreciate this, and it's really inspiring. And I know there's got to be a lot more people than just you and I that are in a very similar boat,
Yeah.
and that there's, still some really fun times ahead. So thank you, Day. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.